Good evening and welcome. This is a regular meeting of the Princeton Planning Board on July 21st, 2022. Pursuant to Section 13 of the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of the time and place of this meeting has been given by prominently posting the amended resolution of regularly scheduled meetings of the Planning Board of Princeton for February 2022 through January 2023. A copy was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on January 7th, 2022. Legal notice on the adoption of said resolution was published in the January 14th, 2022 edition of the Princeton Packet. Notice of this meeting also has been posted to the municipal website, princetonnj.gov/calendar. Pursuant to Executive Order 107, due to the ongoing state of emergency in New Jersey regarding COVID-19, notice that during the declared state of emergency, all regular and special meetings of the Princeton Planning Board will be held electronically via Zoom, was transmitted to the Princeton Packet, Town Topics, and the Times, and was filed with the Clerk of Princeton on April 8th, 2020, and again on January 6th, 2021. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. During hearings on applications for development, members of the public will have an opportunity to comment and ask questions. Questions may be asked after each applicant's witness has testified. Public comment is heard by the board after an applicant's representatives have finished their presentations and have been questioned by planning board members and staff. Those wishing to comment orally should virtually raise your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen, or if participating by phone, by pressing *9. Oral comments will be taken in the order in which hands were raised. We ask with respect that members of the public express your views in 3 minutes or less. We'll have a countdown clock to help speakers keep track of time. Please note that speakers who exceed 3 minutes will be interrupted. Inappropriate public comment containing obscenity, hate speech, or relating to matters not before the board will be muted. Carrie, will you call the roll, please?
Ms. Capizoli?
Here.
Mr. Chow? Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Mr. McGowan? Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mr. Quinn?
Here.
Ms. Sachs? Mr. Texarney?
Here.
Mr. Taylor?
Here.
Mr. Boddigheimer?
Here.
Mrs. Wilson?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. So announcements. I just want to start by saying that since we so often hear committee reports under announcements, future planning board agendas will have sort of a set aside section called committee reports so that they're separated from announcements. I think our next meeting after tonight is September 8th. Is that correct, Carrie?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Other announcements, Mr. Quinn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We are attempting to get a meeting of the ad hoc committee. Ad hoc committee members have been notified of our intent to meet on next Friday, which is July 29th at 10 a.m. And I assume that's okay because in a long ago doodle poll, everyone said it was okay. So we'll be joined by Mr. Lesko and by Council Gerald Muller. So see you next Friday.
Okay. Good. Justin Lesko.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And sorry, I have a new dog trying to learn Zoom etiquette. I'm here to discuss right now the master plan update that I said I'd give at every meeting. The economic element survey is still going on, so that's at princetonsurvey.org. The yellow signs you see around town that say "Tell us what you want." I think we've received just under 2,000 responses, and we're at about the halfway point. That's going to be going until roughly the first week of August, so please continue to fill them out. There's been some confusion if that's the only outreach or the main outreach we're going to do for this master plan, and that is definitely not the case. That survey is really to guide economic analysis that's going to help shape an economic element of the master plan, but we'll have further opportunities for input, 2 more surveys, 2 open houses, the steering committee meetings over the next 11 months or so.
Great.
I
Mr.
just wanted
Cohen,
to advise, I just wanted to advise that Mr. McGowan has arrived.
Oh, thank you. Yes.
I'm not sure if this is the correct time to do this, but I wanted to inform you, Madam Chair, I need to recuse from the application for 335 Jefferson. I'm a neighboring property owner.
Ah, okay. Thank you. This is a fine time, as good a time as any. Okay, any other announcements? I'm sort of splitting my screen between the agenda and everybody's faces and names because I don't have a printed out copy of the agenda. So bear with me if I keep looking at different parts of the screen. Seeing no other announcements, let's move on to minutes. These are minutes from the regular meeting of October 7th, 2021. Any comments or suggested edits beyond the, I think I sent around some minor edits for clarity after the original went out. And if there are no suggested edits, would someone like to move those minutes?
I'll move them.
Thanks, David Cohen, moved by Mr. Cohen, seconded by,
I'll second.
thanks, Julie, seconded by Julie Capizzoli. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed or abstaining? Okay. Carrie, did you have something?
No, I just said thank you.
Okay, great. Hearings, the first item in this section of the agenda is the Center for Theological Inquiry and the newly resurrected site plan subcommittee met earlier this week to discuss this. I'm going to let Justin sort of start us off with explaining what the subcommittee was looking at, and then David Cohen can report on the recommendations from the committee. Is that fair? Okay, go ahead, Justin.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So you may remember back in January of this year, SPRAB, the Site Plan Review Advisory Board, was repealed by ordinance, and included in that was also the Historic Preservation Commission's ability to classify minor site plans without variances. So what's in the ordinance now is if there is a minor site plan without a variance, the site plan subcommittee that was appointed last week or last meeting is the one that can review that, classify it as a minor or bump it up to a major. And then if they consider it to be a minor, again, without variances, they recommend it for approval to the planning board chair. The applicant would then put it in the newspaper for 10 days and notify the neighbors. And if there's no objection, I'm losing my train of thought here with this little dog. If there's no objection, then the application is deemed approved. So yesterday was our first one of this year, and since that change was made, the site plan subcommittee met. In the future, they will also discuss minor site plans with variances, and the planning board will still see them, but they'll decide if they're classified correctly. If they're not classified correctly, then the applicant has to refile as a major with some of the additional requirements. So that's how we got here, and this Center of Theological Inquiries application was the first one yesterday. And Councilman Cohen, if you want to discuss how that went.
Sure. So I think the members of the board actually did have a chance to see the application for this. since it wasn't clear ahead of time exactly how this is going to be disposed of. So I don't know who all looked at it, but we had a very good discussion. We had good reports from staff, which had recommendations. Both the recommendation that staff felt this application did qualify as a minor site plan, and also some recommendations for either conditions that the subcommittee might want to recommend to the chair, as well as suggestions to the applicant of improvements that they could make, but which were not mandatory conditions of approval. And so I'll just touch on a couple of the highlights. There was a large 48-inch pin oak that is at risk because there's a new water service line for fire suppression that passes quite close to the tree. And so there's a condition imposed that the applicant must either figure out how to protect the tree, but preferably relocate the line so that it doesn't provide that kind of threat. There are a couple of other conditions relating to existing dry wells that the applicant intends to reuse, but staff had concerns that if the dry wells turn out not to be salvageable, that new stormwater management measures need to be put in place to substitute for them. Those are the ones that jumped to the top of my mind, but the committee definitely agreed with staff that this did qualify as a minor site plan application. And so the committee is recommending, and Jerry Muller put together a memo sort of documenting all of the conversation and all of the committee's recommendations for the chair, but recommending that indeed the application be classified as minor and be approved.
Ms. Capizoli?
Oh, hi. I just wanted to tell everyone that the Historic Preservation Commission reviewed this application on Monday. And I did issue a memo, but I don't know, it was a little later, so maybe, I don't know if everyone saw it, but I just wanted to say that it's in the Mercer Hill Historic District, and it is a non-contributing building within that district. And the majority of HPC members were quite comfortable with the alterations to the entrances. And I don't know if Elizabeth Kim wants to say anything, but we also recommended approval.
Ms. Kim, do you have any additional comment?
I think that Ms. Capozoli pretty much touched on the big basis of it. For the other board members, just so they know that the applicant had indicated that the generator will no longer be required. So that's a component that would be eliminated with the application. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir. Mr. McGowan?
very briefly, there were two reports from the Historic Preservation Committee, one from Ms. Capozoli and one from Ms. Kim.
Right.
Let's just-
So I have a historic preservation as a historic preservation officer. I generate a report that goes to the Historic Preservation Commission, which they review as part of their review. But that's also included for the Board of Jurisdiction. They also get a report. And then Ms. Capozoli's memo was the conclusion of their review of the application on Monday.
All right.
The committee also is requesting of the Center for Theological Inquiry that they take steps that are not required, but that we strongly recommend related to green building, LEED certification, additional bicycle racks, things of that nature.
Yeah,
Um,
EV charging.
Yes, electric vehicle chargers, et cetera. And folks might remember that the members of this committee, I appointed Tim Quinn, Zenon Texarney, David Cohen, and myself, not really understanding at the time that the committee generates a report that I either accept or don't, I as chair. And so that feels a little awkward to me. I, sort of like being judge and jury. And so I'm going to appoint somebody else to serve as the fourth member of that committee. I don't think they'll meet again. There's no huge rush. They won't meet again for at least a month. I'm assuming, maybe not until September, but I just wanted to let everybody know that in the spirit of full transparency and whatnot. Are there any questions for the subcommittee members or Justin or Jerry?
No, so just to, I think it's already absolutely clear, but just to underscore, so this will not be coming to the full planning board. It's really been basically dealt with at the site plan committee level and the chair level, as is permitted under the municipal land use law and our ordinances.
Mr. O'Donnell and then Mr. Lesko.
I was just curious to know, was there any public input at the meeting? Was the public invited to this meeting, or?
No, it was not
It was
noticed.
not noticed? Okay.
Not noticed as a public hearing. Jerry, can you speak to, or I'm sorry, Julie, I guess you were gonna.
Yeah, well, actually, at the Historic Preservation Commission meeting, the public is invited to hear the application. And we did not have any members of the public asking about that application.
But,
Mr. Lesko and then Mr. McGowan. I'm sorry, Owen, did that?
No, that's fine. I was just, curious to know if public input was going to be, is not a regular part of this subcommittee meeting.
Justin, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, that's actually a good segue to what I was going to say. The way this process works is there's a 10-day period after the applicant publishes it. We have the files in our office and people can stop by whenever they want. They're also online. And we'll have that memo from Jerry and well, from the site plan committee for people to look at and then decide if they wanted to object to it in writing.
Okay. Thank
And
you.
if they object to it, it then goes to the full board. There's a new hearing before the full board.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Mr. McGowan.
Okay, I'm unmuted. I guess I have a process question. If I'm hearing this right, there's not going to be a hearing tonight. It's essentially whether or not the full board votes on whether we accept the subcommittee's recommendation.
It was just really a report to the board.
Okay. Okay, because again, maybe it doesn't matter in this situation, but again, I never saw Mr. Muller's memo. So if I have to make some decision there,
yeah,
I wouldn't. But if not, then I guess everything's okay.
Well, my understanding of the process is, and this is unusual for a couple of reasons, I think. One, I think that that in most cases, what goes to the site plan subcommittee will come to the board. The site plan subcommittee is likely to, because we see that subcommittee sees minor site plan applications with variances and without variances. And whenever there's a variance, that automatically comes to the board. That's my understanding. Correct, Jerry? And
Yes, yeah, that's correct.
Okay.
And that's how 335 Jefferson wound up coming to the board. Although
Yeah.
ironically, after the whole thing went through that process, they demolished the house, which had created the need for variances. So at this point, there's no variances, but in any event, it's before the board.
I think you meant 39 Linden.
I'm
You
sorry.
said 335 Jefferson.
That's how it's listed on the agenda.
Oh, it's not 335.
No, it is on the
It is.
agenda.
39 Linden was the house that was demolished. Well, I'm
No,
not
no, no.
sure.
No, I understand that the house, one of the houses that was
No,
subject,
Carrie, you're mixing things up. One of the houses. that
Sorry, my
35
apologies.
335 Jefferson has. Madam Chair, may
And
I?
so
may I-
another thing, let
May
me
I
just
try to
finish.
help this out? May I try to help this out? So
Well,
that-
let me finish
Okay,
the,
go ahead.
the other
Sorry.
thing that I know the subcommittee can also look at an application that may come in as a minor and the subcommittee can decide, no, that this really needs to be heard by the board. We think that there are potential detriments that, the board should hear, et cetera. But because of this, that, and the other facet of this application, the subcommittee can say, you don't have to, we can waive certain requirements for a major site plan application. If there's no impact on traffic, we can waive the traffic study. If there's, zero impact on, blanking on whatever, but we can allow for, we can make judgment calls related to waivers and variances, or not variances, I'm sorry, waivers.
although Louise, if it's classified as a minor, there's no need to submit a traffic report in any event, correct?
Okay.
Correct.
Well, but if the subcommittee decides, even if they've submitted as a minor, that it should be viewed as a major,
They
we
can
can
wait.
say, we're gonna consider this a major because it has potential adverse impacts, et cetera. We want the whole board to hear it, but you don't have to do a traffic study.
Correct.
That's
it
the
could
kind of
be-
thing that the subcommittee can do.
Or it
Sorry,
could be
Mr.
that-
Purcell, go ahead.
Or it could be that the reason you decided it was a major is because you do anticipate that there are traffic impacts. There's a
Yeah,
There's a
right.
whole list of things. Just for the benefit of the public and for any of the planning board members, there are 3 ways that a site plan can be approved. The first and the lowest bar is an administrative waiver process. And that administrative waiver is when the administrative officer, which is typically the municipal engineer delegated to the land use engineer, and the zoning officer and the planning director all determine that the project has 0 detrimental impacts has 0 detrimental impacts. We do a lot of administrative waivers. You may not be aware of that, but we do a lot of administrative waivers. And the 3 of us have to sign off on those administrative waivers.
Right, and
Second-
the boreholes for the project related to, but not part of the Tiger application, that
Correct.
would be administrative waiver. Yeah.
Correct. The second bar is a minor site plan. And in reality, an applicant does not apply for approval as a minor site plan. They apply for a classification of a minor site plan. And this is why a committee determines whether or not it is minor. And again, this is another level where instead of just the staff making a decision, it goes to a larger body, which is the committee of the board. The staff makes recommendations to that committee of the board, looks at all of the criteria and determines whether or not there are any impacts, or if the impacts are so minimal that it should continue to be classified as a minor. And so that's what the subcommittee is. It's really to expedite the process. The administrative waiver takes a few days. Minor site plan might take a few weeks. And then we get into the major site plans if either staff or the committee, actually, if they ask for a classification of minor site plan, it always goes to the committee, but the staff may recommend that there are significant, sufficient detrimental impacts that it should not be classified as a minor. And then the board, the committee of the board can determine that it's an actual major. And then the major subdivisions are the ones that require public hearings in front of the planning board. I hope that is one way of clarifying. And I know Justin has some comments and Elizabeth has some comments, but I'm hoping that some people in the public will get a better feel for how all of this process happens.
Thank you. You were more succinct than I was, for sure. Mr. Lesko? And thorough.
I was just going to piggyback on that. The only time in our ordinance that a minor without a variance is supposed to come, supposed to have a hearing in general, is if there's an objection from the public. And the reason being for that is, like you saw last week with the major without variances, this is almost even more than that, because it's saying this application complies with our zoning ordinance and doesn't have any detrimental impacts. So we're not going to see too many of these. I think the bigger part or the more important function or more interesting function is the classification and allowing applicants to self-assess and provide those things that they need, or conversely, apply as a minor and only have to provide certain things. So that's where we're at with that. And I was just going to add, in the past, the planning board never would have saw this in any capacity. So in a way, this subcommittee that reports back to the chair is more planning board oversight than you would have had just a year ago.
And we'll make a point of the committee reporting to the board too, to just make sure everybody is apprised of the projects that it has looked at. Ms. Kim?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Just to add on to what Jim had talked about as far as administrative waivers, there's actually many applications that include properties that are in an historic district. In that case, which historic preservation also gets involved with the rest of the staff to review. As for an application on 140 Nassau Street, it had to go to the commission because they were doing demolition. And demolition is required to be reviewed by HPC. So in that case, it was elevated to a minor site because it had gone before HPC. In those cases, I mean, HPC has generated a memo on that. And I think that the only thing that the planning board is waiting for is for the application to be amended to be changed to a minor site.
That application was delivered today.
Okay. And so hopefully the HPC memo will help the subcommittee and when they make their recommendations to make their work easier.
And Louise, if I can make a comment, just responding to the question Owen raised earlier, which is a very good one, which is, will the public be invited to attend these meetings, and will they be given a chance to provide input? And we discussed that, and the thought was, well, if we did that, that really isn't very different from just having a full-blown hearing before the planning board, and we've eliminated the whole efficiency aspect of it. And it's not as if the public won't have a chance to comment. If so, they're going to be people within 200 feet are going to be notified. I think Kerry, also notification we published in the paper as well, right?
Yes, well, we've been asking the applicant to do a notice in the paper, and then we'll be doing a notice. I think we're doing a notice to the property owners, are we not, Justin?
Yes, that's correct. So basically, nothing is really changing in our ordinance from the way it's been for who knows how long, except HPC and SPRAB are no longer in the picture for these. So this isn't some overnight change or anything like that. This is the process as it's been.
And HPC is still in the picture if it's happening in a historic district, if the minor is happening in a historic district. Mr. O'Donnell?
I just want to say that, thank you for all those clarifications. And I think I understand the process now, and I fully agree with the reasoning behind that. And just again, if there is an objection in any way, then it goes to the full board. I just want to,
Yes.
that's what I heard. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Next up, let me pull the agenda up on my screen. Next on the agenda is Jefferson 335 LLC, a minor subdivision with variance involving 335 Jefferson Road and 144 Terhune Road, block 7007, lots 2 and 14, file number P 2222-185MS.
And Madam Chair, the notice was proper, proof of publication, service was in order, and the board has jurisdiction.
Great. So I see Dandra Bemilski. I know we got a memo from you, so I assume, okay, Justin has turned off his camera, so I'm going straight to you, Dan.
And if you're, yeah, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
So sworn or affirmed.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Board. So I have a July 12th, 2022 report that I'll summarize to get this started for you. This application is for a lot line adjustment or minor subdivision between two existing single-family residential properties. Property 335 Jefferson Road, which is lot number 2 in block 7007, currently measures about 22,750 square feet. It is shaped like the state of Utah, if you would. So it's like a box with a top on it. What they want to do is they want to convey the top of their Utah lot to number 14, lot number 14, which is 144 Terhune Road. As a result, both lots will become rectangular by doing that. So basically, the top, the stub, as I called it, measures 50 feet by 85 feet or 4,250 square feet. The applicants indicated that they are requesting this adjustment to create a regular rectangular lot and to convey the excess land to the adjacent property owner. That's the reason they're removing it from lot 335 and taking it over to 144. There was previously a side yard variance on lot 2, which no longer is applicable because of the removal of the home that was there. So there's no variances. The lot is the new lots will be conforming in every way. I'm trying to see here what I put. It's the applicant has indicated that the subdivision will be consistent with the Princeton's land development ordinance, and the purposes of planning and zoning are furthered by granting the relief. They also have indicated, is their opinion, that the relief can be granted without substantial detriment to the public good, and the granting of variances will not substantially impair the intent and purpose of the master plan and zoning ordinance. So we should have testimony to that effect. I have no exception to those assertions. You do have a joint report of the land use engineering zoning officer, which provides 2 checklist waivers and 3 conditions on comment number 4.0. So it's fairly simple, and I think that should be the summary.
Mr. Purcell, Mr. Weissman, anything to add before we go to the applicant?
No, I think that summarized it up pretty well.
Okay. Mr. Tadaro, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Louise, if I could just swear Dan in.
Oh, of course.
You swear or affirm that the testimony you gave and any future testimony you give has been and will be the truth.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Muller. And so good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. My name is Anthony Tadaro, and I am an attorney with the law firm of Fig, Redrinker, Biddle, and Reith. My firm represents the applicant, Jefferson 335 LLC, in connection with this matter. So we're here tonight. I know it was already overview was already provided, but just want to go through our synopsis as well. So we're here tonight seeking approval to subdivide the portion of the property located at 335 Jefferson Road of the former township. And so it is an irregular shaped lot due to this 50-foot by 85-foot stub of land, as it's referred to in the review reports, that extends north from the main rectangular portion of 335 Jefferson towards Terhune Road. And so this stub area is situated directly behind the rear yard section of the applicant's neighbor, 144 Terhune Road. And so we respectfully request that the subdivision approval, or requesting subdivision approval, excuse me, to prevent a lot line adjustment that would just allow for this stub area to be conveyed to the owners of 144 Terhune Road and become part of that lot. And so we contend that the subdivision adheres to Princeton's subdivision and zoning ordinances for several reasons, including that if granted by the board, both lots 335 Jefferson and 144 Terhune will remain conforming with the lot area, floor area ratio, impervious coverage, and setback standards applicable in the R6 zone. Moreover, the lot line adjustment provides a better layout in terms of lot size and shape that's in keeping with the neighborhood and surrounding area. And since there's no construction proposed by this application, as the subdivision would only increase the active backyard area of 144 Terhune, these benefits may be achieved without any serious negative impact to the community or public welfare. And so here tonight with me are the applicant's representative and surveyor to proffer additional detail about the project and then just illustrate the current proposed configurations just for everyone's review and consideration. And so absent any items to address at this time, I would just ask that my two witnesses be sworn in and we can begin our direct.
Yeah,
When
if
you
I could-
say illustrate, I assume you'll have visual aids.
Yes, Madam Chair, we do. We have just a real quick PowerPoint
Okay, good.
presentation, really just to show what this is actually going to look like.
Good,
because
good. That's what I was
explaining it
hoping
is-
for.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the Utah reference. I almost quipped something about Colorado, but it's always good to see, you know, what we're talking about. Thanks.
Absolutely.
If it was an Idaho shaped, it would be a little more challenging, but we'll leave that aside. The two witnesses for the applicant, if you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
And Tom?
I do.
Yep, thank you. Okay,
So I will begin with the applicant's representative. I see him on screen, and if he could just briefly just introduce himself to the board, I would really appreciate that.
Sure, I can go first. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for your time. My name is David Casas. I am the owner and managing member of Jefferson 335 LLC. As has been stated a few times here already, the plan is a pretty simple readjustment of lot lines to convey the parcel to the neighbor, the Bollingers, as part of their backyard. The two lots will, I think Mr. Harris is going to go over the size and shape of the lot, so I'll skip that part, but the purpose is to make both lots more conforming, both rectangular lots once the conveyance is complete. And that's basically it from my perspective, unless anybody has any questions.
I will just ask, however, that are you aware of any improvements in this area of land that's going to be conveyed?
No,
That exists
it would just be part of the backyard of the Bollingers property.
Okay. And is there any residents on the property as of right now?
No, I'm not 335 Jefferson. No.
Correct. Okay. And so the variance for the side yard setback is thereby eliminated. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
All right, great. I don't have any other questions for this witness absent.
You're saying there's no, did you say there's no residents on 335 right now?
right.
So that home has been demolished?
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so this
We
is
have
sort of
permits.
setting up, this is related in some way to a tear down rebuild situation?
we'll just push back from the one standpoint if it's not really related to this application. It's they're two are just
Okay.
moving in tandem. That's I mean I would just phrase it like that because we've been working.
That's fair enough. I just wanted to understand context.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And this
Okay.
is a portion of the. It's just a portion of the property that really no use for, and it makes more sense all the way around for it to be conveyed and used for the other property.
And is
Somebody.
anyone here testifying tonight on behalf of the other property owner? I think maybe that question has already been asked. I'm sorry if I'm repetitive.
Mr. Bollinger is in attendance as an attendee.
As an attendee, okay. So,
Yeah,
all right.
Madam Chair, we just yes, he's.
I know
here
he's
as an-
not the applicant, or they are not the applicant. So
Yep, and we do have their consent for the and the authorization forms, and those were submitted with their application as well. So
okay. All right. Thanks. Go right ahead.
fantastic. So I will see if I could share my screen real quick, and that way we could actually provide some type of illustrative for the board. Doesn't seem to be allowing me to do it. I could try again.
Carrie, do you need to make Mr. Tadaro there we go.
Okay, there we go. Now it's working.
Oh,
Whoops.
Can everybody see?
Yes.
All right, great. And I'll tell you what, I will just ask.
Anthony, let's mark, this is your PowerPoint presentation, I take it?
Yes, you read my mind. This is going to be a PowerPoint. Do you want us to mark it as one exhibit, or do you want us to do it by slide?
We'll do it as one exhibit, exhibit A1, and how many slides are there?
5 total.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right.
And if you could send that electronically, both to Carrie and to me, that would be great.
Absolutely, and that's why I asked. I was just going to mark it on the top page as A1 for us,
Great.
and then for tonight's hearing, and then I will circulate it as well.
Great, thank you very much.
So, and you know what? I think we might be doing this a little bit backwards because I do want to just qualify our surveyor first.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just stop sharing for a moment. All right. Mr. Harris, I see you. Can you just briefly introduce yourself to the board and provide some of your credentials?
Yeah, I'm Tom Harris Jr. From Harris Surveying, Inc. Practicing surveying, oh gosh, for the last 35, 40 years. And I've testified before, where I've testified in Princeton at least several times before.
And you're a licensed surveyor in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, I am.
All right, license is active in the state, correct?
That is correct.
Made you think about that for a second.
Yeah.
I would just submit Mr. Harris as a professional surveyor.
we accept your qualifications. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Harris, have you ever prepared a survey in connection with this application?
Yes, I did. I prepared the survey of both lots.
Okay, so you have a fairly good understanding of the property and the configuration of the 2 lots?
Yes, I do.
All right, great. And so, do you recognize the survey or this illustration?
Yes.
All right, and what can you explain to the board what this is?
That's a copy of the portion of the minor subdivision that's been submitted, showing the parcel of lot 2 to be conveyed to lot 14, which is 50 by 85, which means what's that, 4,250 square feet.
Okay, And this is the current configuration of the lots, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And do you see the highlighted portion on this next slide?
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
That's the parcel portion of lot 2 to be conveyed to lot 14.
And when you say it's a portion of lot 2, so this area is what the board's professionals have referred to as the stub area
Yes.
of lot 2? Okay.
Yes.
All right. And again, so this would be, I apologize if it's crude, but this is the highlighted lot lines for the 2 parcels, correct?
That's the current lot configurations.
And is this slide 4 we're on now? Just for the record? Yeah, okay.
So, and for the record, there is a lot line, or excuse me, a lot with lines highlighted in yellow on your screen, correct?
Yes,
All right, and that lot is,
that's lot 14 in
Okay.
yellow.
all right, and how about the adjacent lots in red?
That is lot 2.
All right, and based off of your understanding and knowledge of this property, this is the current configuration of the 2 lots as
Yes,
shown
it
with
is.
the highlighted lot lines?
Yes.
Thank you. And so I've just flipped this slide just for purposes of the record. And do you now see any differences in this configuration on this next slide?
Yes, this is a sketch we drew showing how the lots would look after the subdivision is approved.
Okay. So if approved, that back area referred to as the stub area would then become part of the backyard of lot 14, which is otherwise known as 144 Terhune.
That's correct.
All right, and then we would just continue the rear yard lot line on lot 2 across the entire rear of the property. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
All right, so you would just essentially close off that lot line of lot 2.
Correct.
All right, and by this lot line adjustment, we would be perfecting the subdivision that's sought tonight. Is that your
Yes.
understanding?
Yes, it is.
All right, thank you. And I have no further questions for this witness, but I'm more than happy to keep it up if there's any slides that the board wants to reference in terms of questions to Mr. Harris.
Are there questions from board members for for Mr. Harris or for Mr. Casses? Mr. O'Donnell?
I just want to confirm that on the survey, the building, the frame structures, frame dwelling that was listed under 335, that has now been demolished, correct? That's no longer there. Is that the building that has been demolished?
That's my understanding, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it is a one-story frame dwelling shown on the survey.
Yeah.
There's going to be a new structure put on there that's going to be fully conforming with all of the standards applicable in the zoning district.
Okay, thank you.
Did the changes in these lot lines, I assume they do, change the FAR calculations for the home to be built on it's lot 14, correct? And also for lot 2, I mean, would it, I assume, add floor area ratio potential to lot 2 and reduce it for lot 14 below what it was before this subdivision?
Well, it would only increase, well, it wouldn't technically increase the ratio per se. Now, it is unimproved land. That's just going to be an extension of the backyard.
Mhm.
So we're just going to be decreasing the total lot size of lot 2, which is 335 Jefferson, and then just increasing the backyard area for 144 Hume.
Yeah, totally understand that. I'm just wondering whether
Right.
the new structure, the new home to be built on the newly rectangular lot on 335 Jefferson lot will need to be smaller than it could have been, marginally smaller than it could have been with the previous lot area. That's what I'm trying to get at. I see Mr. Bridger.
Yeah, potentially,
Turning his
but we
camera
are
off.
going to comply. So, but please, Mr. Bridger.
Derek, if you can raise your right hand.
Yes, it's here, sorry.
Okay. You sworn and affirmed. Okay.
Yes, the FAR ratio would stay the same, but it would be applied to a smaller lot at the 335 Jefferson, which based on the current stub, it could have a larger house. Once that stub's taken off, it would be a smaller FAR based on the smaller lot area. And conversely, the lot on Terhune would have a larger lot area. So potentially in the future, there could be a larger home that could be built there than what exists now. Did that answer your question or?
Yeah, yes. It was really exactly what I sort of wanted to get on the record. And I may have follow-up questions on how that could potentially impact neighbors as well, because one of the neighbors I think to the north of these properties has a dwelling. I think it's a dwelling that's pretty close to the new backyard lot line. So I did not see aerial or overhead views that showed the location of additional neighboring homes, but that's part of what I'm just curious about. Plans for those lots and whether communications have happened with other nearby neighbors.
That's for the applicant, correct?
Yes, that's for the applicant. Thanks, Derek. And although you can, I'm just saying, I sort of want to understand that. I see that Mr. Dobromilski has his hand raised, so let me let him weigh in on whatever he wants to say, and you can address those other issues after Dan speaks. Go ahead, Dan.
Yes, sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's kind of out of order with that, but just, Jerry, do we need any professional testimony regarding conformance with the master plan, or that the benefits outweigh the detriments since there's no variances involved?
No, for exactly that reason.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay. And so I'll tell you what. I believe the applicant's representative could let the board know if there's been any communications with neighbors, but I'm not sure if there has been at this stage, only because we're not proposing any changes to the either lots really. Well, really ours, but there's going to be no changes if approved.
Okay. Well, before we go to public comment, are there any other questions from board members for the Mr. Taylor? You're on mute.
For clarification, please. I noted in the materials submitted to the planning board members, there is a statement that on lot number 14, existing non-conforming bulk conditions exist, and that with the lot adjustments proposed, all such bulk requirements are met. I simply didn't understand the nature of bulk conditions. Could you just clarify that, please?
Certainly. So when initially submitted, there was an side yard encroachment due to the then existing structure. So that one-story home went into the side yard setback. That was pre-existing condition. There was a chance that the subdivision would then implicate that encroachment. We would then just want to make sure we had that variance in there to cover any possible issues down the line. However, now that that structure is no longer there, there's no pre-existing nonconformity. It's been demolished, so that condition's been extinguished.
Thank you. Got it.
Mr. O'Donnell?
And just following up on that, I have a question which really is directed to our professional staff, and just for my own edification, so I understand this. So when the application was originally submitted, it was submitted with a variance request. And then when the building was demolished, that variance, the need for that variance disappeared. So that doesn't require a new submission. I'm just want to make that clear for myself.
I could contact, they were asking for a reaffirmation of those variances if it's necessary. It may have been deemed that they weren't necessary because they were pre-existing nonconformities.
That's correct. We weren't even sure if we were going to be, if it wasn't necessitated by the application itself, but it's one of those you always want to throw it in there in terms of transparency and for completeness of the record. But then there was absolutely no reason to pursue it once it was extinguished.
Okay, but I guess one of my questions, and again, it's more of a theoretical question, is that if an action is taken that would remove the variance, the application as it was originally submitted still moves forward?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
Dan in his memo, paragraph 2, says at the end, the zoning chart on the subdivision plan offers detailed data regarding the bulk standards before and after subdivision. It should be determined if this chart needs to be updated regarding current construction on lot 2. Anthony, if you or your witnesses could respond to that.
Sure, that'd probably be for Mr. Harris.
Tom, do you want me to read that again?
We're going to be modifying the.
I mean, I can modify it if we know what's being proposed. I can modify the table. Is that the question?
Well, it says it should be determined if this chart needs to be updated regarding current construction on lot 2. But is there
a building permit for lot 2 yet? So in fact, you do know what's going on there.
I do not. I'm not sure if we actually pulled we have the demo permit. I'm not sure if we pulled.
Because they said that he was nodding yes.
Yeah, Mr. Cassess says yes, there is a permit.
Yes.
Then yes.
Yes, and the permits were approved based on, or the designs were built assuming the size of the new lot, and the permits were granted based on the size of the potential new lot, the smaller size lot. So yes, all those permits were put in place already.
In terms of,
I'm sorry. To answer your question, then yes, then it will need to be updated. And so as a condition of approval, we are currently fine with updating the bulks chart to make sure that it's current.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks
thank
for
you.
raising that, Jerry.
Yeah.
So seeing no other hands raised from board members, I will open this meeting for public comment, the hearing for public comment. So members of the public, I see one hand raised, and Ms. Phillip is bringing over Mr. Stein. Justin, do you have the countdown clock ready? I would ask that you tee that up. Hi, Mr. Stein. Mr. Mueller, our attorney, will swear you in, and then you'll have your 3 minutes.
If you could raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
So sworn or affirmed. And if you could state your full name for the record.
George Henry Stein, address 149 Terhune Road.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Yeah, my comment is very brief. We're a neighbor of the Bollingers. They're great neighbors. We support their efforts in this regard. Looks to us like a perfectly rational lot redraw. And basically that's all I need to say.
Thank you. That's really good to know. Good and helpful. I appreciate it very much. And that took, what, 25 seconds or something?
I yield.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
You're very
Are
welcome.
there any other members of the public who would like to speak? I see Mr. Bullinger, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing his name properly, has raised his hand. Carrie, can you bring him over? Mr. Bullinger, can you activate your camera and unmute yourself, please? Ah, there we go. Welcome.
Okay. Are you both going to testify or?
My comments are going to be very brief, but yes.
You both will. Okay, if you both can raise your hand, your right hand, please. Okay, very good. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
So sworn or affirm, please state your full name and spell your last name. Or both of you state your full name and spell your last name.
Kevin Bullinger, Kevin Bullinger.
Okay.
Erica Bullinger, Erica Bullinger.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Madam Chair and members of the board, thank you so much for the efforts around all the great work that you do. And obviously my wife Erica here is holding our child. This is our fourth child, and we're joining this meeting and really happy to be a part of it. Really excited about the potential expansion in the backyard. With 4 kids, the whole purpose of the expansion, for us would essentially be to expand the backyard and let the kids play. And that's it. So, I don't know, Erica, if you want to say.
No, I was just going to say, it's the intention is to remain an active backyard and just give us a bit more play space. So we thank everybody for your time and consideration.
Well, thank you.
Thank you all.
And if I may be so bold, and I say this with utmost respect, especially since you have 4 children, I hope that you won't cut down any big trees for purposes of creating a soccer field or something. But I recognize that you have rights that are beyond the purview of this board, and I'm speaking just an individual there.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on this? I'm not seeing any other hands raised. So with that, I'll close the public hearing portion of the meeting. Any final questions for the applicant before we move this and then hear from Mr. Muller about conditions? Would someone like to move?
I will move approval with the conditions to be articulated by Mr. Muller.
So that would be approval of minor subdivision with 2 waivers from checklist items relating to historic preservation plan, which has not been prepared, and a fire protection plan that has not been prepared. The only 3 conditions would be in the memo of Dan Weissman and Derek, items 3, 4, and 5. I'll read them. The lot numbering for the subdivision will need to be revised. The subdivided lot 2 will become lot 2.01, and the consolidated lot 14 will become lot 17. Next, 2 pairs of New Jersey State plane coordinates shall be provided to the Princeton Municipal Engineer in digital format to facilitate updates to the tax map, and the applicant shall submit to the Mercer County Planning Board for approval. And their approval would be a condition of the application as well. And that's it.
Now, Mr. Muller, if I may ask just briefly regarding those conditions. We
Yeah.
do not see any issue with them. Now, for purposes of the first one you had mentioned regarding the new lots, if this were to be approved tonight, would we want to just say that we would obtain new lot numbers from the tax assessor's office? That way we're not strapped to just becoming lot 17. We're just not sure exactly what lot we're going to receive when we make that request.
Dan Weissman, do you have a comment on that?
If we know for certain it's going to be lot 17, we're fine with it. We just figured to carve that into a resolution if it's going to be a condition of approval.
Jerry, you want to swear me in?
Yeah. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
I do.
So it's one or affirm.
Yes, yes, Mr. Tadaro, those are the lot numbers
Okay.
that. So, the submission to us for compliance should include those lot numbers.
Perfect.
And the last condition, which I didn't mention, I had mentioned earlier, the one about correcting the chart that in response to comment on Dan Dobranowski's memo. We talked about it a little while ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Mr. Quinn has moved approval with those conditions. Mr. O'Donnell, do you have a question or? are
No,
you
I was
seconding?
just going to second Mr. Quinn's motion with the
Okay, great.
conditions.
Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Mr. O'Donnell. Carrie, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Capizoli,
Yes.
Mr. McGowan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Yes.
Mr. Quinn,
Yes.
Mr. Texarney,
Yes.
Mr. Taylor,
Yes.
Mr. Bodekheimer,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilson.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you.
Thank you all for your time tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thank you all as well.
In the absence of Councilman Cohen, I will move adjournment.
Second.
Second.
That was quick. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everybody. And enjoy your August. I will see you in September, if not before.